So the whole reason we don't get our prayers answered is because we're not humble. It's because we're not humble. And what is it that brings humility? What is it that softens the hardness of a human heart? And the answer, Rav Nachman says, is learning Torah b'koach. Learning Torah with enthusiasm. So we said yesterday there's 3 explanations for Rav Chaim Kramer explains is learning Torah b'koach. The first one is to do it with energy and enthusiasm. The second one was to do it out loud, to speak out loud when you say it, that you should hear your voice strongly. There was a third one we didn't mention yesterday, which is as important as the other 2, that Rav Kramer brings down as the third explanation of what it means b'koach, and that is when you don't feel like learning, okay? So this actually gives us a very big clue into how learning Torah b'koach actually helps you, because all 3 of these levels are things we naturally, based on our circumstances and our emotional states, don't want to do. When I come to learn Torah after a very difficult day at work, I don't necessarily want to be learning with enthusiasm. I mean, maybe inside I want to do that, but I can't actually get myself to do that. It would be much easier for me not to. So it takes a great deal of humility to get yourself to learn with joy, even though you don't feel like doing that, okay? So that's 1. 2 is that you learn where you can hear your voice. And again, when you're feeling down, when you had a long day, you don't necessarily want to be saying loudly what you're learning. You probably just want to read it, okay? So again, we're trying to crush this part of ourselves. So we're learning that if you say it out loud as well, this also brings you to a state of humility. And what's the final one that we just said? Learning when you don't feel like it. That's also called b'koach. Let's say, for instance, you had a long day at work, or you just got into a fight with your wife, or, anything, like normal stuff that we all experience from day to day. So now I might just feel like going in my bedroom and laying down and vegging out and seething about the event that just took place or my whole day. But now we're learning that you have an amazing opportunity now, that it could be that the whole reason you had a tough day is only so you can mekayim learning Torah b'koach, right? And I say this to my students sometimes. Sometimes people will say to me, it's raining outside, or the weather's not good, or it's hard to find parking. So the way that we usually think is, what's going to be comfortable for me? That's our nature. But that nature is not who we really are. That's the nature of our yesh, of our ego. However, when we have an opportunity to connect to Hashem in a deeper way, to be able to receive the light of the essence of all that's good, so we need to try to meet him where he's at. And we're learning that means being like a nun, achieving a state of nothingness, achieving a state of humility. So that means that I'm not doing it because I want it. I'm doing it because I want to connect to Hashem. And Hashem wants me to do that. So that means learning Torah b'koach, when you don't want to learn. Like, for instance, Rav Nachman's learning Seder, like we spoke about before, we're going to learn in the third Torah of Likutey Moharan Bezrat Hashem together, that Rav Nachman says it's very good to learn Gemara at night, okay? Now, the Rambam himself says that why is the ikar of learning Torah at night? So he says part of the reason is because you don't want to learn Torah at night, right? When you get up in the morning, you had a nice cup of coffee, you had a good breakfast, you go to a shiur with some of your friends before work, and maybe you have some chiyut, you have some energy. You want to get started the right way, and it makes you feel good. Okay, great. But now, after a long day, and now it's 9 o'clock, you may not be so feeling learning a piece of Gemara right now. So one of the reasons why that's so beneficial is dafka because your nature is not to want to do that. Chassidut is coming to change our nature. One of the limitations of revealed Torah is that you can get yourself to a point that you go against your nature. But Chassidut is trying to actually transform your nature. Because Rav Nachman's saying the biggest blockage to receiving all the blessings that we're all looking for is our nature. And your nature is not you. And I want to tell you how deep this goes because it's very important for you to know this. Otherwise, you may not have the courage to go all the way with it. It's taught in Chassidut. It's taught in Kabbalah. I heard Rav Ginsburg speak a lot about this. That there is a state of you that you come into this world naturally with that is called tohu vavohu. Right? When the world was created, when the universe was created, the world was in a state of complete chaos. There was no seder. There was no harmony. There was no peace. There was no unity. It was tohu vavohu. And then Hashem rectified it. And then there was light. Okay? Now we know, and the Gemara says, that every person is a world. So that means that when you come into this world, you also come into the world in a state of tohu vavohu. Everyone does, in a state of inner chaos. Now, you may not know that as a kid growing up, but at some point in your life, it's going to hit you that there's something that's not right, whether it's because of emotional issues, whether it's because of psychological issues, whether it's because of family issues, but something is going to strike you as there's something wrong because I don't feel good right now. I don't feel, right? So where is that coming? It's coming from the fact that Hashem first gives us an initial nature that's tohu, that's chaos. However, even though the world champions this nature and they embellish it, because look at culture now. What is everything that's championed? It's sexuality, it's ego, it's sense of self as disconnected from everything else. It's you going all the way in your dream at the exclusion of everyone else. So all of these things the Torah says is tohu vavohu. It's chaos. And that's the reason why all those people who are obtaining those goals, you find out, chas v'shalom, 5 years later, they killed themselves. They overdosed on drugs. What's the reason? But they're achieving the dream. The answer is they're achieving the dream of Esav. Now, they don't know that. It's not because they're bad people. They could be very good people. It's because they simply don't know the wisdom of the Torah, which is trying to save your life, which is that nature is called tohu vavohu. It's complete chaos. And that's why you're not happy. So what does that person do? He continues in that, trying to get to the goal, meaning he's thinking, maybe I'm not happy yet because I didn't get enough individual success. I need more of it. So let me get a higher position and let me get a higher and higher until if you get that schut in your mind that you do achieve that thing, then at the end you actually feel very empty. I have a whole theory that one of the reasons and one of the blessings of our generation is that for the first time in history, people are achieving things in their individual life that nobody even thought about before. You were a simple potato farmer, you were a simple businessman with your family, you just wanted to provide for them. Nobody thought to themselves, I want to be the leading tech company in the world. You know, nobody used to think like that. So now what happens is you have a lot of people in our generation, or in our generation, that we're kind of shooting for full achievement of everything. And what Hashem is doing is he's allowing a lot of people to do that and to experience that. And what do they feel in the end? They often feel very empty. Many Bali Tshuva are coming back not just because of difficulties, but actually because they went to school, got a degree, got a job, and they're asking themselves, is that it? Because for 20-something years, that's all I worked towards because I was told that that's what there is. And now, but I'm not happy. I don't like my job. And I don't like myself. So now the Torah is teaching you that you're still not a vessel for receiving the light. And now Chassidut is actually showing you that first state is not even you. That's not the real you. Your second state is the real you. That's the state of tikkun. There's a very big concept in Kabbalah and Chassidut of tikkun. Now, a lot of people like to speak about tikkun olam, the rectification of the world. A lot of people like to think about tikkun, what's my tikkun? We don't really understand exactly what we're saying. Tikkun means that I'm rectifying my inner state of chaos. I'm rectifying my initial nature, which even though my soul is pulling for only good, that initial nature is stopping me from experiencing any of that good. Chassidut is teaching you how to turn your inner state of chaos into a state of tikkun. Okay? Now, Rav Nachman is saying the key to that is to become like a nun, to become humble. Because the whole state of chaos is coming from yesh, somethingness, ego, separation. Tikkun means harmony, unity, peace. That only comes from truth. And there is no truth beside the Torah. So now Rav Nachman is saying, so the key to you becoming humble is to learn Torah, but b'koach. Specifically when it's difficult for you. Specifically when you don't want to. Specifically in a loud voice. Specifically with energy and happiness, even though you don't naturally feel like that. Why? Because that's breaking your initial inner nature of chaos. But if you don't realize that's why you're doing it, you're not going to have the koach, you're not going to have the strength to actually push yourself to do it because you're not going to feel like doing it. And that's what we're used to doing what we feel like doing. But that's what's causing us to feel all of this chaos. So now he says, this is the reason why when the Yetzer Hara comes after you, the Gemara says, take him to the Beit Midrash. So what's the simple understanding that we usually have from this? Is Torah is the best thing. The Yetzer Hara is the worst thing. Let me just go somewhere else and distract myself, okay? So Nachman's saying that's not what it is. The essence of the fact that you're taking him to a Beit Midrash is you're taking him to the place where I am going to be humble. And he has no space there. Because if I go to a Beit Midrash right now, and I go learn with enthusiasm, with energy, despite my life circumstances, if I go learn, even though I don't feel like it at all right now, even though I feel guilty learning right now after what I just did 5 minutes ago, and I do it anyway, so I am achieving a tremendous state of humility by going to that Beit Midrash and doing that, and that is what eliminates Esav. That's why Hashem says, I can't be with a person who's haughty. And Hashem is not in the same place as Esav. They're never in the same place. So Rav Nachman saying, why is the Gemara teaching, bring him to the Beit Midrash? Because in the Beit Midrash, you're going to be learning Torah b'koach. And if you learn Torah b'koach, you're going to achieve an inner humility. You are going to rectify the foreskin of the heart, which we are given as our nature. And then you're going to be able to receive all the light of Hashem. And he says here, Ki ayadei Torah noten koach lamalchut dekadusha. Because it's by means of the Torah that you give strength to the malchut of kedusha. Now again, what is the malchut of kedusha? It's your inner state of reception. When you're in an inner state of receiving kedusha or godliness, that's called the malchut of kedusha. That's the Kabbalistic way of explaining. But very simply, it means, how do I achieve experience of the light of God? You do that through the letter Nun. That's the malchut of kedusha. However, you have another malchut, meaning another vessel with which you can receive life force, and that's the malchut of the Sitra Achra, and that's your nature. That's Esav. The Torah is the distinction. By learning, and specifically learning Torah b'koach out loud, with energy, with happiness, even when you don't feel like it, and learning at night when you don't feel like it, and learning things that Rav Nachman says to and you don't want to. So all of those things are bringing you to an inner state of humility. And that itself is what's going to make you a vessel for receiving the infinite light of Hashem. Then, vazai mikabelet hamalchut. Then the Malchut, Shebechinat Nun, that's the concept of the Nun, Chiyut Mina Chochma. He's now able to receive the life force from Chochma, which we said is the light of the Ein Sof. It's still page 28. This is the light of the Ein Sof. Again, the Chochma is the light of the Ein Sof. So everything that you want to connect to is called Chochma. Someone called me today and was trying to help me to say this word correctly. So I hope I'm getting it right. Chochma, okay? Chochma is the light of the Ein Sof, right? The Ein Sof itself is untouchable. That's called the unknowable head. But Chochma is the beginning of that light of the Ein Sof manifesting in a way that can be experienced. That's called Chochma. Now, how do you experience that light? You can't do it with your normal frame of mind because you're in a natural state of tohu, of chaos. And the state of chaos can't receive light. That's why Hashem took that light and saved it for the future for tzaddikim. And who's a tzaddik according to Rav Nachman? Someone who's humble. Rav Nachman says the essence of a tzaddik is he's reached the highest level of humility. So if you want to gauge, am I growing in terms of my tzaddikiness? Am I getting closer to becoming whatever the ultimate goal of the Torah is to bring us to? And the answer is, am I becoming more humble? So now we're saying why? Because the humility itself creates the vessel. The more humility you have, the more empty space there is for Hashem to fill with His light. The less there is, He's just not able to fill it because it's already full. That's the problem. It's not because Hashem doesn't want to give you. Hashem always wants to give you. He just can't, because He gave you this unbelievable ability to choose to fill it yourself if you decide to. Why did He do that? So that you have free will. Because if anybody didn't have free will and you understood what it is to have the light of Hashem, everyone would just be like a nun. Everyone would be humble because you would understand and you would experience in a very felt, palpable way, this is a great life. This is much better than the life I had before. But in order to give us free will so we can choose that, and that choosing itself is the schar in forever for you. That is the reward for you forever, that you chose it. Not even that you succeed, but that you chose it. So that can only happen if you have two conflicting wills. The Yetzer Tov, which is your inner state, your soul state, your tikkun state of humility, or your state of tohu vavohu, of chaos, which is your nature that you're born with, which you're now here to rectify, which is not even the real you. It's only given to you so you can remove it. That's the whole reason you're here. Like Rav Nachman says, and it's very clear in Chassidut and Kabbalah, this world is about birur. It's about clarification. What is a clarification? It's extraction. Extracting good from the bad. You yourself are only the good. But in order for Hashem to give you free will, He needed to mix it with apparent bad. That apparent bad is your nature that you're born with, but it's not you at all. And the reason why we struggle so much on all different levels of existence is because we don't know that that's not who we are. And the Torah is teaching you, it's just to give you a choice. So as your life is going on, you're just trying to do birur, more and more of extracting the good from the bad. This is why Rav Nachman says in Hibodedut, start with Nakuda Tova. Start with your good points. Why is that? Because very easy to lose them in the seemingly bad. However, the key to extracting them is to recognize them first. First, start with those good points inside of you. Then once you have recognized the good and you have attached yourself to the good, that is the Chochmah itself. Then once you've done that, you're able to say, you know what? I'm not that problem. I have that problem. I am not arrogant. I have arrogance. I am not an angry person. I have anger. It's a very big distinction. I know it might sound like exactly the same thing, but it's not. It's a very subtle difference, but it's so important because what we do is we demonize ourselves. And Rav Nachman says this is going to be the greatest Yitzhahar in the last generation. Our generation is koach medameh, the power of our own imagination. That we ourselves are going to feel like we are the problem. You are not the problem. We have a problem. But the problem itself is only given to us so that we can choose to extract the good from that place and then live with that amazing feeling, that amazing gratification. You know, the Zohar says that we don't like free bread. We don't like the bread of shame. We like to feel like we've earned it. You know, Hashem, when we're saying becoming humble and becoming a vessel for Hashem's light, becoming no thing, doesn't mean losing yourself, meaning your real self. It means losing your external self. Hashem never wants you to lose your true self. The whole reason He created you was because He wants to have a relationship with you. If you were to, let's say, completely lose yourself, right, which you may think that that's the goal based on what we've learned so far, then you just go right back into the Ein Sof. Then there is no you, and there was never any you, and then Hashem created you for no reason. So Hashem doesn't want that. He wants you to simply extract all the good from the bad, and that's very hard. And Rav Nachman is teaching the key is learning Torah b'koach. Okay. Then what happens is that your malchut, your ability to receive that light from Hashem's Ein Sof, the Chochmah, the Chet and the Nun are joined and bound together. So listen to what he's saying now, because this is amazing, okay? V'yitchaber v'nitkasher hachet v'hanun. Now you're joining the Chet and the Nun. What's the Chet? It's the light of Hashem. Everything that's good. What's the Nun? It's your real self. It's your inner self, which has no external reality. It's your inner self, which doesn't feel like it's separate from anything else and from Hashem. It's your inner self that has complete emunah in Hashem, that believes totally in Hashem, in the fact that He's good, in the fact that He loves you, in the fact that He is only trying to bring you closer to Him. That is the state of Nun. And when you connect those two together, which you do by learning Torah b'koach, that's the chibur. The Torah itself has the ability to unite things that are separate. Where do we see this? Rav Nachman says clearly and explicitly in an amazing way. And I actually spoke this to my rabbi before he passed away, and he really loved this. He thought this was beautiful, even though he was a beautiful litvak. So so we were talking about friends, and he was telling me how his friends, the only real friends he has right now, still after his whole life at that point was in his 50s, are the ones that went on the same journey as him. Meaning it wasn't the ones he grew up with, they fell out. It wasn't the ones who he thought he was friends with, they fell out. But the ones who were truth seekers, in the end, it ended up being those 2 or 3 people were the only people who ever stayed in contact with his whole life. So Rav Nachman says why that is. Because Rav Nachman says, you'll notice that in the Beit HaMikdash, or in the Mishkan, there was an Aron. And on top of the Aron, where the Torah was, you had the 2 cherubim. You had the 2 angels who were looking at each other, right? So they represent friends. Now you'll notice, Rav Nachman says, how are they friends? How can 2 completely separate entities become real friends? And the answer is only when the Aron is between them, meaning the Torah. The whole purpose of Torah is chibur, is to unite things which by nature cannot come together. It's the glue. So when we're trying to attach ourselves to Hashem, and our nature is completely opposite. Why? Because He's a giver, and He wants us to be a complete receiver. So what attaches those 2 things? Only the Torah. And then you connect the Chet, which is Hashem's light, which He wants to give you, with the Nun, your ability to receive that light. And then the light of the moon becomes as bright as the light of the sun. And now we can understand that Rav Nachman is actually telling us a very deep secret. What is going to change at the end of time? Like Yeshaya says, that the light of the moon is going to be as bright as the light of the sun. And we're saying now the light of the sun is Hashem's light. And the light of the moon is your light. How are those things going to become equal at the end? The answer is when you get to the ultimate state of humility, that you have no external reality anymore. That you do not think anymore, I am living in and of myself. I am not experiencing life from someone who is creating, from who's orchestrating, from who's causing. I am causing. And that might be very subtle. But that itself is what's diminishing the moon. But as soon as you let go, as soon as you say to Hashem, Hashem, this is all you. It's all you. All you. Rav Nachman used to pray to Hashem in a way that he would say, he would get ready for Shabbat, right? He would do everything that he could in his end, meaning he would get the challah and he would get his clothes for Shabbat, whatever was lichot Shabbat. And then before Shabbat, he would say to Hashem, Hashem, I did my part, now you do yours. Your Shabbat is in your hands, not in my hands, right? I did whatever you told me I should try to do. I did that. So now for all Shabbat, I'm not going to worry for 1 second if I'm not doing something right. That's on you. I'm putting it on you. Now, how does a person be able to say something like that? Only when he's reached the highest level of humility. Because a person who hears that might think to himself, how can you speak to Hashem like that? And the real truth is, and Rav Nachman actually says this elsewhere as well, the highest level of humility is not even like Moshe Rabbeinu. That Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to take credit for anything. A higher level, Rav Nachman says, is that you can take complete credit for whatever it is, and you don't feel 1 ounce that it was your doing. It was all Hashem. So we're saying right now that a person who has true humility, he can then beg and advocate to Hashem for whatever it is he wants, because it's coming from a real place. It's coming from your true self. It's coming from your best place, and that's the place Hashem wants to hear from you. Okay? So now he's saying, then the light of the moon, meaning how much you receive of Hashem's goodness, is going to be as great as what he's actually giving you. Because Hashem is always giving you all that light. But because our moon is small, because we're filling it with ourselves, whether that's very explicit or whether that's very subtle, we're just not able to receive that light he's giving you. But as soon as you empty it, like when you get up in the morning, say to Hashem, Hashem, this day is yours. Right? Like it says in Sichot Torah, I'm giving you the day. However it goes, exactly how you want to go. However you want it to happen. So that means it's good. It's good no matter what happens. Let's say I say that, and then I get out of bed and I trip and I sprain my ankle. That's awesome. Why? Because that's exactly what Hashem wants. How do you know? Because you reconfirmed it right before you got out of bed. But let's say you don't do that in the morning. You just get up, you say, and then you get out of bed. So what happens when you sprain your ankle? Oh my gosh, I told my wife that you need to clean this area of the floor and take my socks out. Or, I don't know, I should have set my alarm at a better time. So you go into a whole host of natural responses to that. The only truth that's the real truth, you tripped because Hashem wanted you to trip. That's it.
So I have a question, Rabbi.
No question, Jad. I'm so sorry. I would love to take your questions, but I'm
sorry.
I'm
it's
okay.
I'm really sorry.
Nope, no problem. I did this for 3 years with some guys where we learn these things, and I love taking questions, and it's great and it's awesome, and we used to do it like the whole class, and we would only get through like a sentence of every piece, and then I ended up taking like about a year.
Okay, I'm a newbie. I'm sorry.
No, I'm also a newbie, so I'm with you. We're doing it together. Don't worry. Okay. So yeah, it's all Hashem, and you have to continue to talk to Hashem about that. Because that's what's gonna make it real for you. If that's the whole special, unique, powerful koach of Hibodedut, is by talking to Hashem, you are recognizing that He is the cause. And the more you speak to Hashem, the more you are recognizing that he is the cause. The less you speak to him, the less you're able to keep in your consciousness, Hashem is the cause of what's happening. But if you're like Rabbi Nachman, and before and after you do everything, you're talking to Hashem, so it's going to be very clear to you that whatever is taking place is from Hashem, and it's nothing else. And that's the state of reception, that you're able to receive the light of Hashem. And when one rises, the other one falls. So this is a very big yesod in the Torah, which Rashi brings in Bereshit, which is that whenever Yaakov goes up, Esav goes down. And whenever Esav goes up, Yaakov goes down. They can't be in the same place. I remember the first time I taught this class, I made notes. At that point, I was, so excited, and I really wanted to try to get people to understand whatever I was hoping to have them understand. Sorry, John, there's questions at the end. Unless you're just giving me like a high five. I don't know what that sign is. So I drew a picture of a seesaw. And you have like one person over here who's on the seesaw. We'll call him Yaakov. And you have another person over here who's called Esav. Now, whenever Esav goes up, Yaakov has to go down because it's a seesaw. That's how it works. And the other way, if Yaakov goes up, Esav goes down. So what are we learning Yaakov represents? Yaakov represents your Yetzer Tov, meaning your state of reception that comes from humility. So when that goes up, automatically your Yetzer Hara goes down, because what's your Yetzer Hara? It's your ego. How can you be humble and self-centered at the same time? They don't go together. And what happens when your ego is strengthened? Then your humility goes down. Your Yetzer Tov goes down. So they cannot be in the same place. So Rav Nachman's now teaching, how do you make sure that your Yetzer Tov, your humility, is always staying up so that you're always in a state to receive the infinite light of Hashem? It's through learning Torah b'koach. And that's what kills off Esav. This is what he says causes to fall and nullifies Esav, the Yetzer Hara, the ego. Kamosh Katuv, like it says in the pasuk, Ki yesharim darchei Hashem, because the ways of Hashem are yashar. Tzadikim yachum bam, tzadikim, they walk in them, ufoshim yikashlu bam, and people who are actively going against the ratzon of Hashem, they're stumbling in it. So what it looks like is that they're having two separate experiences. That the tzaddik, he's going in the ways of Hashem, and the person who's not the tzaddik is not going in that way. But Rav Nachman's saying an amazing insight. They're both going in the same way, except the tzaddik is walking there, and the person who's not the tzaddik, the rasha, he's stumbling in it, in the same exact thing. Meaning, the tzaddik, he's humble. So when he goes through the same events that the rasha goes through, he actually receives the light of Hashem from the event. Whereas the rasha, which doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad person, it means he has a very intense attachment to his self. So when he experiences his life that way, then he stumbles in those same situations. So practical example. A person, he comes home and he gets a text from somebody telling him, by the way, kol hakavod on the presentation you gave today at work. However, you should know that you came off as very pompous. You came off as very much like you didn't want anybody else's input, and that nobody had any say besides you. And you had no intention to do that at all. You had no idea that's the message that was coming across. And even if it didn't come across to anybody else, but it came across to that person. So what's a normal response to that? What are you talking about? I asked you guys to be involved. I wanted you guys to be involved. And you can, and then, or maybe you say, okay, thank you for letting me know. But then after that, you're thinking about that for hours. And what's wrong with me? How did I come up, right? So you're stumbling in it. But what does a tzaddik do? The tzaddik gets that, and he goes, wow, Baruch Hashem, I pray to Hashem every day in my Ibodedut that I want to be humble. This guy's humbling me. This guy's making me feel humble right now. I feel very low right now. This is the way to experience the light of Hashem. Thank you. He doesn't have to explain all that to his coworker, you know. But this is the whole point that Rav Nachman's saying, that the tzaddik walks in it, and the Rasha stumbles in the same exact thing. Hayinu ayadei darchei Hashem, meaning that through the darchei Hashem, whatever you're going through in life, which we're going to call Torah, Hayinu Torah, ayadei zeh tzadikim, through the tzadikim, shedvekim b'malchut kedusha. By means of the ways of Hashem, the Torah, the tzaddik, what means that they're a tzaddik? It means that they have attached themselves to their malchut of kedusha, their inner state of reception, their inner state of no-thingness, of humility. Okay? So now, because of how they're learning Torah, b'koach, how they're experiencing life, b'koach, they now are able to receive the light of Hashem's Ein Sof, of the Chochmah of Hashem. And they are fortified and they're given strength. Heim nitchazkim umkablim koach ayedezeh. And you're actually given strength through whatever you're going through. Not the opposite. Ufoshim yikashlubam. And these people who they're stumbling, why? Because of arrogance, because of ego. And again, it does not mean that person's a bad person. It's because he does not realize that his nature is actually disconnecting him from all that's good. And his nature is not who he really is. He just has never experienced it, or he doesn't know how to. And therefore he stumbles in the same thing. Bechinat malchut harsha'ah. And therefore he still has malchut. He still has a state of reception, but that state of reception is something that disconnects himself from the light. It doesn't help him receive the light. That's why it's called the Yetzirah. Because the concept of Ra, so let's just make it very simple. What is the whole concept of the Torah? The Torah is supposed to be able to create unity between you and Hashem. To unite you so that Hashem can pour over His light to you. All the good that you're looking for. What does Ra mean then? Ra has to be the opposite of that. Why? Because it says in Chazal, there is no good besides the Torah. So your Yetzer Tov must be your Yetzer Torah. However, your Yetzer Hara must be the opposite of that. And if the Torah unites, what does Ra do? It separates. This is why Rav Nachman says clearly in many, many places that what does it mean that people are evil, or that they're getting in the way of you being close to Hashem? It means that they're separating. There's machloket. There is strife. All of that is coming from Ra, evil, because there was no Ra before Hashem created. There was no strife before Hashem created on the second day. 2. Meaning, why does it say in the Midrash that there was no blessing on the second day, that it was good? On the first day, he said it's good. On the second day, Hashem didn't say it was good after He created it. On the third day, He said, Tov Me'od, it's very good. Why? Because 2 is not good. Because 2 means separate. The whole reason Hashem created 2 is to make it 3. Meaning, to bring harmony to it. To use the second and make it whole. So very simply, what we're saying is, evil means separation from Hashem's light. Tov means connection and reception and unification between you and that light. That's what it is. Part of us being able to really connect to the Torah, and especially the words of tzaddikim, is to understand really what they meant. Because for our generation, when you see Rasha, evil, or you see Poshe, is a sinner, so we usually, at least for me, I just have flashbacks like Christian dogma I learned when I grew up. And this is not what the sages are speaking about at all. So now he says, all of this is humbled by means of the Torah. So now, we're going to start the third section. The third section starts like this, and then we'll take questions, and then Bezrat Hashem, you guys should have an amazing Shabbat. It is through this, meaning the humbling that comes through learning Torah b'koach, that all your prayers are now going to be received. Because the essence of the reason that your prayers are not answered is because they lack something called chen, grace. And it isn't entered into the heart of the one who's receiving what you're asking. That, so to speak, that the one who is listening to you pray to him, Hashem, doesn't have room in his heart to hear what you're saying because you don't have grace. Because that you're lacking this grace, the one who is asking doesn't have the chen, and it's needed for those words to enter, for the person who's hearing it to enter. So very simply, he's saying like this, and it's based on Kabbalah again, obviously. Where does Hashem answer your prayers from? So to speak, it's from his heart. So in terms of Kabbalistic terminology, this is the sphere of Bina. Bina is called Hashem's heart. And it's there that Rav Nachman's teaching that Hashem receives and answers your prayers. But he can only answer your prayers from that place if he has space for you in his heart. How does he create space for you in his heart? When your words have grace, when they have chen. When do those words have chen? Torah, when you attach the chet to the nun, when you connect, when you join and you bound together both the light of Hashem and your vessel for receiving that light, which you do through learning Torah with enthusiasm, with a loud voice, learning when you don't want to. When you do that, you cause your Yetzer Tov, which is how you receive the light of Hashem, to ascend. That causes your Yetzer Hara to be humbled and to come down. Now you're in a state of reception. So now when you pray in that state, then all your words have what's called chen. And when your words have chen or grace, they then create space in Hashem's heart. And now he answers those prayers. That's why the Torah is called a graceful gazelle. What we're saying here means it causes the Jews' chen to ascend. So what does that really mean? Rav Nachman saying, what's the essence of the Gemara saying that it causes a Jew's chen, his grace, to ascend when he learns Torah? Meaning, the state in which a Jew needs to be in order to get his prayers answered, which is called grace, which comes from humility, that can only be achieved by learning Torah when it's difficult for you, with a loud voice, with joy, because all of those things are mechanisms for humbling you, and not humbling you in your essence, because your essence is already humble, but humbling your Yetzer Hara, humbling Esav. And when he's humbled, automatically your real self comes out. Your Yetzer Tov comes out. And when you pray from that place, Rav Nachman saying you get answered. And as it's a case when someone speaks with chen, that it penetrates the heart of the one being petitioned. That it penetrates the heart of the one being asked. So I want to do the next piece, but I can't because then we're going to have to go into a much longer time than we have right now. But simply stated, if I said to you after class, or at the end of this class, guys, by the way, I really need donations for our company because I want to buy a very big house. Okay? Now, I don't think any of you are going to be running up to get your wallet to give money to the organization so that I can go buy a very big house, because you also want a very big house, okay? And you're also looking for that. Or maybe you're not, but you still don't want to give someone else your money that you work for. Why? So you can go buy a big house? No. So my words don't have chen. My words don't have grace. You don't have room in your heart for those words. However, if I told you that I have suffered tremendously in my life, only so that I could spread light to the world, and now Hashem has given me an opportunity to do that, and I've toiled tremendously to do so, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, and I don't know who's going to help me, but I plan on giving my best shot, and there's no way for me to do that if I don't have resources to get these classes out to people. So I don't know for sure, but I would assume that those words have more place in your heart. What's the reason? Because those words are real. Those first words are not real. And even if I think they're real, because that's the reason I want it, it's not real. Because I don't want a house, Esav wants a house. I want to be close to Hashem. And a person only has room in his heart for the truth. Hashem only has room in his heart for the truth. So when you talk to Hashem, how do you have space in his heart, so to speak, for him to hear you when it's coming from a real place? That's why Rav Nachman says, go do hibodedut. Because only when you're in the field and you're away from the rat race of society, can you sit down and say to yourself, what's really important to me in my life? Why do I want that big house? You know, I really want that big house because I want to be comfortable. Why do I want to be comfortable? So that I can be happy. Why do I want to be happy? Because happiness is going to allow me to achieve my dreams. What's my real dream? I want to transcend my limited reality. You know, I want to go beyond whatever my nature has been. I want to experience something incredible. How do I do that? I have to connect myself to the thing that's unlimited. That's Hashem. How does a person have a dialogue like that? Only if he's by himself with no distractions whatsoever. And when you get to that place and you pray from that place, Hashem answers that prayer. Why? He has room in his heart for that prayer. But if you come to Hashem and you ask for who knows what, the basic things that normal people ask for, Hashem doesn't have room in his heart for that because it's not really coming from you. It's coming from Esav. And Hashem doesn't want to answer Esav's prayers. He wants to answer your prayers. Any questions for anybody who's here? And by the way, for anyone who tunes out at this point, Shabbat Shalom. Second week together. Amazing second week. I hope that you're having from these classes. I hope that in some ways this is becoming more accessible or differently accessible or something. It's something that's allowing Rabbi Nachman's light to shine more for you. I'm going to say it over and over again.
Can somebody send a quick pay to the Tzion on WhatsApp, please?
Someone can put it on the bottom. Hopefully one of my students can put it. Rabbi Nachman's light heals. It heals. So our only goal has to be to figure out how to receive that light. It's not about making a new path. He did it already. We did it. I promise you he did it. We just have to make ourselves into a vessel to receive that light. And that comes through our Yetzer Tov. That comes through humility. That comes through unity. That comes through love. So these past 2 weeks have been amazing. I really hope that you guys have connected and you're working on these things. This Torah is not for intellectual stimulation, even though it's the most intellectually stimulating thing that there is. It is so that you can become close to your real self and to Hashem. So after you leave these classes, you should go to the next day and try to live with what you learned and talk to Hashem about what you learned and pray to Hashem that I should be able to experience whatever it is that Rabbi Nachman is speaking about. Okay? Thank you so much, guys. Shabbat Shalom. Any questions before we head off? Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Rabbi Nachman talks a lot about gratitude, right?
Yes.
So, like, sometimes, like, let's say you're going through something. Is it like sometimes I don't want to be, I mean, okay, I can thank Hashem, but like, will I really mean it? Instead, I'd rather just pray for the salvation, even though, you know, I'm supposed to be grateful.
Right. I understand. Great question. So, you know, if you read someone like Rav Arush's books, you're going to come out thinking like, I should only thank him, even though I don't feel like thanking him. From my very limited, very minuscule understanding of Rabbi Nachman's Torah, he wants you to be as real as possible, okay? That within the gratitude itself, he still wants it to be coming from a real place. So therefore, you definitely need to be thanking Hashem. And you should start with the things that are obvious to you, meaning not this thing that's difficult for you. Start with things that you should be thankful for, like I have clothes on my back. I have a bed to sleep in tonight. Things that we usually take for granted. And then move from there, okay? The point is to try and open up your mind to the fact that Hashem is doing so much for you and you don't realize it because the one problem is all we focus our attention on, okay? Once you realize that Hashem is actually doing a lot for you, now you're not going to fall into despair when you ask Hashem for help. You're going to be able to do it from a place of hope. And the point of the thanks is yes, to be grateful, but it's to recognize reality. Because when a person is not living in reality, which is the majority of us, so then we don't have the ability to actually pray to Hashem in a way that he answers, because he can't answer that state. If he answers that state that you're in, then it's not even going to help you. Because let's say he gives you the issue and the thing that you asked for. So now you're going to have a new problem. And now what are you going to ask for? I need a Yeshua for this problem. And you're just going to do that your whole life. But did you get any closer to Hashem? No, you just got your problem solved. But you didn't come here to get your problem solved. You came here to get close to Hashem. So therefore, it's a very fine balance that needs to be worked on, which is that on the one hand, you're trying to attain gratitude for everything, both the good, the revealed good, and also the thing that you are having difficulties with. Now, how would I say it? Maybe I'm not 100% right, but this has been very effective for me, is try to meet Hashem where we're both at. Meaning, if I really need help with something, but I also need to be very grateful. So what do I say to Hashem? Hashem, I know that I should be thankful right now, but I'm not. I'm really struggling and I'm suffering tremendously. Hashem, please help me to be thankful even for this. So what's happening now is that I am trying to be thankful, and that's real. And that's connecting me more to the truth. We're going to speak a lot about these things because Rav Nachman's Torah speak a lot about prayer. The next Torah as well, we're going to be speaking a lot about tefillah, especially in that second Torah. We're going to be discussing this balance, this harmony. It's very hard. It's a very hard balance. You have to just learn a lot of Rabbi Nachman's Torah and to continue to pray to Hashem to be able to understand it. But again, it's about being not thinking that you deserve anything, okay? Doesn't mean you don't ask for whatever you need. You should ask for everything you need. But it's coming from a place of, like Rav Nachman says, I want it as a free gift. I don't want it because I deserve it, even though you might feel like you do. But I want it because you're good. I want it because you love me. I want it because you care about me. I want it because you know what's best for me. And I want this because I think you want it. But let's say I want something Hashem doesn't want for me. Let's say I want a very high-paying job simply because I want to live a life of comfort. So nowhere in the Torah does Hashem say that is a goal. Now, even though it's hard for us all to hear, because the modern Jewish world kind of wants to sell us that you can do both at the same time, even though I find that, unfortunately, to be very inauthentic and cutting us short. because I don't really think it's possible. And I think the proof is that none of the tzaddikim ever said that that's a goal. So to come up with a new goal, at the end of time, is asking for a lot. Okay, but let's say I want to make a lot of money because I want to be very comfortable. So now let's say I come to Hashem and I say to Hashem, I want to make a lot of money. Please help me. That's not going to enter his heart, because that wouldn't even help you. That would actually bring you further away from Hashem, because you're only here to be close to Hashem. That's why you came to this world. You may not realize that yet. You may not recognize that yet, but that's the only reason you're here. What a terrible father Hashem would be if he gave you an answer to that prayer and brought you even further away from him. Can you imagine I sent you on a mission to go collect diamonds in a city. And when you got there, you forgot your mission. And you called me and you said, hey, what am I here for? And I told you, you know what you're here for? You're here to sleep. Oh, you're like, oh, great, that's what I wanted to do. I'm so tired. But what are you going to do when the trip is over? What a terrible father. That wasn't why I was here. I'm here to collect diamonds. Why didn't you just tell me I'm here to collect diamonds? And the answer is, the tzaddikim are teaching you, you're here to collect diamonds. You're not here to sleep. Now, this is very hard for us to understand, because our whole goals prior to becoming Bali Tshuva was to become comfortable in whatever way that we wanted to, whether it was financially or emotionally or psychologically. And now the Torah is not teaching us that the goal is comfort. The goal is closeness. So we have to go through a complete paradigm shift, which is so hard. It's so hard to try to meet Hashem where he's at, because that's where all the good really is. And that means that for me now, what should my prayer be? What would be a real prayer? Hashem, I don't want to make money because it's going to help me get closer to you. That's not where I'm holding right now. But if that really is the good, help me to want that. Help me to want to make money because it's going to bring me closer to you and not because I want to. That's a real prayer. That prayer is going to get answered. That's real for you, and that's real for Hashem. Does everybody understand the distinction? I know it's very subtle, these things, but it's an important distinction. It's about being truthful within yourself, but within Hashem's truth. That's really what it is. And those prayers are always answered. Those words have chen. Those words have grace.
David, you have a question?
Yes.
On the slide.
Yeah. What's the question?
It's in the chat.
Okay. So let me look at the chat. 1 second. Oh, wow. There's a lot of comments. Okay.
From John.
John, I'm looking. This chen you speak of, is it chet and nun? Is this the concept of chokhmah and bina to unite and produce shefa, like a man who's humbling himself to his wife by giving seed? Therefore, he can have a child, aka his prayer becomes answered only through humbling, basically, like the two angels on the ark. I have a feeling I know who John is, and his name is not John. But 1 second. Let me go back and see that question again. The answer is yes. That is exactly what it is. But I don't want to get too Kabbalistic because, John sounds like Benny. I don't want to get too Kabbalistic because I think we're going to lose the practical element, and I don't want us to get lost in the theoretical aspect of it, which is very easy to. And just to simply say, what am I coming away with? Come to Hashem with humility, which you do by learning Torah with koach, meaning when you don't want to learn, you learn anyway. You learn what you don't want to, that Rabbi Nachman says you should. And you do it with joy, even though you're not happy. And you do it with energy, even though you're tired. So when you do that, somehow there is, and I'm not going to get into Kabbalistic reason why, there is a crazy mechanism that takes place. And now all of a sudden, your soul becomes really receptive to the light of Hashem. And now your prayers are able to be answered. That's it. Is there any other questions, Aaron, from the bottom?
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Are you also John?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's like a two-part question. It's basically the same thing. Okay. How do you get yourself to do that? This type of learning, if you're really like tired or really not feeling well, or you're just really in a bad mood, like you just that's number one. Number two, would this be a good idea to do right before your hitbo to do? If you're about to go to hitbo and you want to be receptive to light.
So Rabbi Nachman says, pray, learn, pray. Okay? So ideally, you're trying to go back and forth between these states, meaning of self-nullification through the learning, and then praying from that place. And then after you pray from that place, then now learn from that place. The whole point is to be connected to your malchut of Kedusha, to be connected to this true inner self, which is not how you wake up in the morning. It is something that you need to work to do, to get yourself into that place. And Rav Nachman says, how do you work yourself into that place? That you learn even though you don't want to learn. And you force yourself to stay up to learn, even though your eyes are rolling in the back of your head. And you learn things that Rabbi Nachman says is good for you to learn, even though you don't feel like learning it. Like, for instance, Rav Nachman says every single Jew should learn Shulchan Aruch every day. Now, I can only speak for myself. I don't want to do that. But why do I try to do that? Because Rabbi Nachman says to. And I know it sounds like too simple, but the real truth is that Rabbi Nachman knows things that you can't possibly imagine. And he knows the length and breadth of existence, both physically and spiritually. And any simple piece of advice he comes out with, like learn halakha every day no matter what, even if it's one halakha, right? But lama say, I now know a new thing. That's what Hashem wants me to do. So part of becoming humble is trusting the tzaddik, that even though that doesn't make sense to me, that I had a terrible day and I don't have time and I'm exhausted right now, that I should now push myself to learn a halakha. But that itself is actually what creates your inner state of reception, because it makes you humble. Because what you're doing is you're not going according to your external will, which is based on self gratification, but you're doing it based on trust that the tzaddik is going to lift up your inner self, which is where you're going to experience all the good that you want in your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
First part of my question though, what if you feel really, really terrible? How are you supposed to like learn or get yourself to feel happy or any of that?
Okay, good. So part of the reason for the tiredness is two reasons. One is you have no chiyut, you have no life force. Why don't you have life force? Could be because you're stressed, which means it comes from a lack of emunah. It could be because you are engaging in your taivas, right? Let's say I have a taiva for food, or a taiva for wasting seed, or a taiva for anything, okay? Rav Nachman says that what causes lethargy, what causes tiredness, it's called excess. So just on a practical level, I would work in your hipodah and ask Hashem, help me to find out where I have excess and help me to remove that excess. Because Rabbi Nachman teaches that the cause of my tiredness is excess. Okay? So what he really means is physical excess. Usually a taiva, a desire for food, for pleasure, for anything beyond what you actually need. Because what's happening is when you're engaging in that taiva, when you're engaging in that desire and you go beyond what you actually need, so what happens is whatever you engage, okay, when you interact with the physical world, so you want to use the physical world as a vehicle to be able to reveal your soul. But what happens to us is when we use the physical world simply for the physical world itself, let's say, for instance, I need to eat in order to have energy. I need to eat in order to learn. I need to eat in order to pray. I need to eat in order to try and help other Jewish people. I need to eat in order to go to work so I can support my family and fulfill the mitzvah of supporting my family. So how much do you need for that eating? So it's probably much less than we're doing, right? So if Nachman says when you eat more than that, what's happening is that's called excess. And anything that's excess in the physical world, not only does it not give you life force, it actually takes away your life force. It removes your energy because excess in the physical world means klipa. So when you eat more than you need to, you are creating klipot, which are like leeches of life energy, of life force. And it could be very subtle. The example that we always talk about is I need one piece of pizza to be full, but I eat 3 pieces of pizza. Why am I doing that? Because I enjoy the food. So Rav Nachman saying, well, that's okay. What ends up happening is you have 2 slices worth of leeches, which are now going to be drawing life force from you instead of giving you life force. Because all life force actually comes only from spirituality. It doesn't come from physicality. Physicality takes away life force. So you want to use the physical world only as much as you need to strengthen your spiritual self, and not more than that. And as long as you are investing in the physical world just for the physical world itself, then whatever it is, whether it's sexual or whether it's dietary or whether it is whatever it is, all of those things, once you go beyond what is necessary physically, then that act itself actually removes your energy and your life force.
So what if I don't get full on one slice? Can I have a second one?
No. Whatever you get full on. I was just giving an example.
Okay. I got you.
Whatever it is that you need, just in a bare minimum. We're going to be speaking on Sunday about the concept of Yesod, the quality of Yesod. This is the sphere which we connect to the Brit, okay? Now, even though on a very simple level, the Brit means I'm not wasting seed, right? We all know that. However, Chassidut is trying to teach, Rav Nachman is trying to teach you that Yesod is a state of existence. It's not just not wasting seed. It's not engaging in the physical world, not for the purpose for which it was created for you. What is the Brit Milah? Then on the 8th day, you circumcise the excess part of your area of the most intense pleasure. Why are you removing that excess part? Because if you kept it, it would take all the life force away from that place, which is actually very, very powerful and has a lot of life force and creates a lot of godly things. Why is that what makes us Jewish? That if you don't have a Brit Milah, you're actually not halachically considered a Jew, even if your mother's Jewish. And the reason is because the whole concept of being Jewish means that you are revealing the light of Hashem in the world. And to do that, you need to use the world for why Hashem made it and not for your own purposes. That's called being a tzaddik. So what does that mean simply? It means when I come to eat dinner, like right now after I'm done, I haven't eaten in a long time today. So I would love to go eat everything in my fridge right now. And I'm sure I would really enjoy it. And then I would feel very sick and very tired. And then I would go to sleep. But Hashem created food so that I can have energy, so I can now talk to Hashem after this, or to go learn, or to go mechazik one of my friends who's struggling, or to be a good husband to my wife, or whatever it is. The food was not created for the sake of eating it. It was a means to an end. So, but let's say, for instance, I go have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And after I'm done, I decide, wow, that tasted really good. I want to have another sandwich. But I don't actually need that other sandwich. I just want that other sandwich. So that's called that's called blemishing the Brit. Because the Brit, it comes from we'll speak about this B'ezrat Hashem on Sunday. There's a name of Hashem which is connected to the Brit, and that is the word Shakai. There's different names of Hashem, and each one is connected to a different sphere. The one that's connected to the Brit or Yesod or the Tzaddik is Shakai. This word, says the Midrash, comes from the word die, enough. Like it says in the Midrash, that when Hashem created the world, it was like endless physicality. And the Midrash says that if Hashem would have let it keep going, then we never would have had an actual world to be able to experience that light of Hashem. So what did he do? He said, die to the physical world. Meaning, now everything is set up in a place, and it's not more than that. And that's what allows us to live. So now Rav Nachman's teaching, it's the same thing in your own personal life. You also have to say die. You have to say enough to anything that's beyond what you physically need. Now I know that's very hard, and Rav Nachman says it's the hardest thing that a man is going to be able to try and achieve in his life. But it is a goal that you need to keep in mind and that you need to pray on, because the main reason why people are tired is from two reasons. They are not saying die. They are engaging in the physical world not as a vehicle for revealing their inner light, but to enjoy the vehicle. And then they end up giving off their life force, mamash, literally, physically, and spiritually, to the other side. Or they have a blemish in their emunah, and because they don't really believe everything is for the best, so then everything is weighing them down, and that's also sucking their energy out. But even that itself comes from a blemish of the Brit. So hopefully that answered your question. And that's something you should pray on. I would pray a lot on that. I pray a lot on that. Any other questions before we sign off? Nope. Okay, everybody, have a Shabbat Shalom, really, mamash, from the bottom of my heart. I hope each of you has an amazing, amazing Shabbat, and that you really are able to connect to Hashem and to experience that light and to make yourself a receptive state so that you can experience that. And on Shabbat, Rav Nachman says it's very important that you be happy no matter what. And I know that's so hard. But the only way to do that is by being humble, right? And we're seeing that now hopefully all of Rav Nachman's teachings are going to start to come together for you. Really what he's trying to do for us is to make us humble. Because humility is the key to receiving the light of Hashem. So how can a person be happy all the time? Only if he's humble all the time. Because if a person feels that he is entitled to something, or he deserves something, or that something should be a certain way, so by feeling and thinking and living like that, we're actually cutting off our ability to receive the light of Hashem. And that's the cause of all the negativity in our life. So a good prayer, the best prayer that you can make over Shabbat, help me to trust Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Help me to trust the eights of the tzaddik, that everything that he says, even though I don't understand how it's good for me, and even though I don't want to do it, I'm going to pray to be able to do it anyway. Or I'm going to ask Hashem to help me to understand or to want to do what he wants me to do anyway. Because in the end, this is what's going to bring you everything you're looking for. The tzaddik heals. I'll say that over and over again, but I'm telling you right now, the tzaddik heals. His wisdom heals. His advice heals. But your ability to experience that healing is your ability to nullify yourself to this wisdom that is beyond understanding. Everybody, Shabbat Shalom. I love you guys. B'ezrat Hashem, Sunday night, we're going to have a men-women's class speaking about the sphere of Yesod, which we just touched on at the end of the class. It's a very important topic. And it's very clear in Chassidut that this is the biggest test of the final generation before Mashiach comes in this area. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom.